Oh, I've not clicked go live. Okay, apparently now I'm live. I've been talking to myself for the past 60 seconds. Welcome everyone to the first Tabletop Tuesday. Today we're going to be going an episode on IACP, and we've got some spoilers for Season 8. We already have a comment from IA Command talking about can't wait to see the new cards, and neither can I, although it's a little suspicious coming from the person who might have sent me these cards to preview for you guys today. Now, I actually started this stream with a picture of myself on the screen. I tried to get a webcam set up, but it was frozen before we even began. So there was a picture up there, and I explained that situation. I think I'm having some kind of a driver issue with the webcam, but that's fine. We are going to keep moving on from there. So you can see we are starting on the IACP website. I think as a good topic for this stream, we should be going through the Season 8 cards that have been revealed so far, and we would follow up with 2 new Season 8 cards that I'm going to reveal during the stream here. And we should be revealing those throughout the first section of the stream. Once we get past that, I'm later going to start recording some Vassal Log reviews on stream here, and I think that'll make it a little easier to post them on the channel over the next couple of days. But yeah, we can begin. Looks like we currently have a couple of viewers. We had a few more a second ago, so I'm feeling a little maybe like pressing go live a minute late might have hurt me here. Post them on the channel over there. But I think it would be great to start with the Season 8 preview gallery. So far, what we have in the season. So clicking on this tab, we want to go through these articles, but we have already got about 10 cards revealed for the season. And I know that these previews are going on for 2 weeks. I don't know if we're going to keep at this rate of 5 cards a day, but I think it's going to be a big season at this rate. There's a lot of cards already here. Before we get too into things, though, I did want to make sure anyone watching this gets the announcement. There will be a large tournament celebration weekend for IACP Season 7 coming up this weekend. So this is published by Noah a couple weeks ago. This is to celebrate the conclusion of another competitive IACP season for Season 7 and help kick off Season 8 playtesting. We're going to host an entire weekend of Vassal tournaments as a finale during the weekend of April 14th, 15th, and 16th, entirely free to play. Hopefully this will allow as many folks as possible to be able to get in on one last tournament with the Season 7 metagame. I think that's pretty exciting. So we have 3 rounds here. Looks like April 14th is a Friday. We're going to start at 3 p.m. PST with 3 rounds of Swiss. Saturday, we're going to have 3 rounds of Swiss with a top 8 cut. And then Sunday, same thing, 3 rounds with a top 8 cut. So a little bit longer for these longer days, longer parts of the weekend. And it looks like there is actually going to be some prize support. Let's see, check out video, how to learn Vassal. And this is also a great way for people without an in-person community kit to get their hands on some prizes from the IACP 2023 Community Champion Prize Kit. So you guys can check out some more details here, but if you head over to the Slack, that'll be a great way to get signed up for the tournament and, jump on into the final bout of Season 7 IACP. Now, I will let you know if we ever can jump up to about 6 viewers, since this is, kind of second week of streaming here. I'm not expecting huge numbers. But if we can get up to 6 viewers concurrently, I'll stop whatever I'm doing and immediately show you guys the first of these 2 preview cards. In fact, you know what? We'll lower it to 5. How about that? We get to 5 viewers, we'll stop, drop everything, and we'll reveal that first card. And feel free to engage in the comments. I have them tracked over here. I'll see them as they pop up on the right side of my view. But I want to start by looking at the cards we've released so far. So over the past couple of days, some of you might not have seen this, but we've gotten 2 spoiler articles for Season 8, and the first one was a big one. I actually did not think that this was going to be the first thing to come out, but it is a big kick for IACP Season 8. So the first preview here is an article about things are about to get technical. So back in September 2021, over 6 months before the public unveiling of IACP 7 cards, the steering committee was trying to work on something that has never been done before in Imperial Assault since the core set, bring a new figure trait into the game. And I don't think I need to go word by word for everything here, but the general gist of it is IACP for Season 8 has decided to introduce Technician cards, or figures with the Technician trait. And they talk about here in this article how they define a trait a lot by the command cards that the trait uses. I think there is also some synergy to be had with cards that name a trait in their text, such as Cad Bane, synergizing with specifically hunters. And IACP for the first time has decided, you know what? There are some traits missing from this universe that we could add here, and the first thing we could do is adding technicians or mechanics, basically people that work on droids and vehicles and fix things throughout the Star Wars universe. And they summarize the themes up here of what mechanics should do. They fix things, they sabotage their opponents, they improve their allies, they're very precise, and they're versatile, but they interact with technology, whether that's terminals, doors, droids, or vehicles. And I like what TV Boy put here in the article, saying this is a good list for thematically what mechanics do, and mechanics just being another word for technicians. But he says, I'll add that something I think is missing from some of these. To balance out the versatility, mechanics and technician cards could be made to feel a little clunky. Now, obviously, this can be a little abstract as if you make a card too clunky, no one's going to play it. I think we've seen a lot of cards that look very cool but are very situational throughout the game, and those kind of have to be brought in or brought up in power level to make them a little more generic. But Noah talks about here action costs, telegraphing at the start of the round, etc. Like, you're going to know that these people are going to do things a little more ahead of time. Like, they're not wizards like Force users that can fix things presto. They might be able to fit you into their schedule, but it's going to cost you, and it'll get done when it gets done. So the theme here is these mechanics can do a lot of things to improve or sabotage opponents, and they want to represent this by it taking a little longer for them having such versatility and being a little more telegraphed. Let's see, so they came up with 20 plus ideas for new command cards for technicians, but for the first time they decided to add technician, and they had to add it to a lot of the figures in the game. So really here we have 13 new figures, 13 new cards in IACP. It really is more like one card. So they added a new card, Technician Training. This is a skirmish upgrade, and this is our first Season 8 preview card. Now really this is a free, neutral upgrade, and all it does is it says all figures in all armies with the names below gain the Technician trait. So you have Chopper, we can go through this list, but it's Chewbacca, the Ugnaught Tinkerers, Zuckuss, Doc Aphra, Chopper, the E-Web Engineer, and the regular E-Web Engineers as well, Gerard Kelvin, Jawa Scavengers of all kinds, R2-D2, General Soren, and Mach Eshkare from the campaign mode. Now, this was their solution here. So basically they came up with two solutions. They will let you reprint all of these cards with the new trait added on them, or you can just print this one reminder card called Technician Training. Now what's important here was technicians in IACP, the figures below are now technicians in IACP regardless of whether you bring this card or not. So even though this looks like a card that I could not bring it if I don't want my opponent's cards to be technicians or something, or you don't want yours to be technicians, no, this is actually just a reminder card. This affects everyone either way. So to have it as a skirmish upgrade is a bit of a weird choice, but it is a nifty reminder if you want to bring it, if you want to print this out and play in person, to remind you that all of these cards here are now technicians. Now, funny trait, Chewbacca and Gerard are now the first 2 cards in IACP to have 4 traits. I think it's good that Chewbacca's eyes are a little further down in this art because one of them would have been cut off now. He's a Technician Smuggler Wookiee Guardian. And I think, based on what we've seen so far for Technicians as we go down, he already has a few new toys to play with this season. Meanwhile, Gerard Kelvin is a Technician Brawler Leader Spy. And that is a lot of powerful traits, assuming that this new Technician trait is very good. And I believe they mention here a number of... There are 13 deployment cards whose only change this season is to receive the new Technician trait added to their card. So really, we've gotten 13 new IACP cards in the first article, but it's really kind of just wrapped up in one. But I wanted to see if they mention how many command cards they're releasing this season. Technician command... So we're going to look at a few today from this spoiler article. And there are... Let's see, we're 8 years late to the party. So they're coming out the gate with a whopping 7 command cards to their name this season, with 5 of them being brand new and 2 of them being retrains of existing command cards. So we're going to look at 3 of them now. The first one is Disable, and I actually think it might be good for me to pull up Tabletop Admiral, so we can look at these side by side. So Disable is originally a smuggler-only card. It is a special action to choose an adjacent hostile figure. Until the end of that round, that figure cannot use Surge or special action abilities. And it's a 2-point single copy card. Here now, it is now a Technician or Smuggler card. Same effect, but the cost has been brought down to 0, making it a lot more affordable. And while this still costs an action, a lot of the Technicians in this game are things like Jawas or Ugnaughts that are kind of lower cost. So to use an action on them to kind of disable one of your opponent's stronger activations is not that bad of a choice. Hey, welcome to any viewers that are just popping in now. If we get a couple more viewers in here, we're going to drop everything and immediately reveal one of these promised Season 8 spoilers I have for you today. But until then, we're going to keep working through the preview articles that have come out so far. Just talk with you guys and the audience about everything that has been coming out for Season 8. And again, if you want to post any comments, go right ahead and we can have a little dialogue here. But right now, we're talking about the new Technician trait and the Disable card that has been retrained. So while this used to be extremely expensive at 2 command points to bring, it is now a 0-point card and is also enabled to be used by Technicians. Quite a number of them are low-cost figures. So, especially things like Jawas, I think they have like 5 movement. They do not, but they are still really low cost, so it's not the end of the world to have them waste or spend an action on Disable, especially if they can run up to an opponent's Mandalorian or something, or IG-11, and freeze them. Basically stop all their surges, neuter their attack, and stop them from using their own special actions. And as we'll see between the next card, the next 2 cards, special actions are something of an important thing for Technicians, at least what we've seen so far. So this is actually like the Technician's Technician counterpick, at least from what we've seen so far. So you stop their surges and you stop their special actions. Some of the Technicians here already have special actions, but where we get into is we're going to skip this middle card here for a second, and we're going to jump into their capstone card, all in a day's work. So this is kind of what brings together everything we've seen in this article. This is a Technician 3-point cost card. You can only bring 1, and you use this after you resolve a special action or interact during your activation to become focused and perform an additional action. So a lot of your special actions from Technicians, things that don't involve attacks, you can use this card after you play one of their special actions and get that extra focused attack out. Or in another situation, maybe your special action is an attack. Not sure if anyone has that up here. Gerard does, leaping slash. So you can move 2 spaces, then perform an attack. So he could use that and then play all in a day's work to get an extra action, and you could use that to run away. So in that case, it's kind of like a to the limit, get an extra action after you play a special action. This also works if you do an interact. So if you play on like the new map that just came out, playing on that, I think you need special actions to pick up the weapons. So you could actually pick up a weapon as an interact, play all in a day's work to get focused, and then your attack suddenly went from 2 dice to 4 or 4 dice to 5. So this is great because a lot of the technicians have special actions, and so far we're already seeing 2 technicians cards that also have special actions attached to them. So this next one is Reverse Engineer. It's another 0-point card, and it's a special action to perform an attack. During this attack, you may use surge abilities on the defender's deployment card instead of your own. Apply +1 surge to the attack results. So you actually get to choose in the middle of the attack. You get to spend Surge's step, and then you get to decide what surges you're going to use, yours or your opponent's. This is a cool new unique effect. And again, you can see a bit of the clunkiness in how like you have to run up to your opponent and spend a special action to get the disable off. Here you have to spend a special action, perform an attack. It doesn't seem that clunky because an attack is usually an action anyways. And at worst, Reverse Engineer it's a 0-point blitz for technicians, except you have to use it during your own activation, I believe. Let's see. It's a special action, so yeah, you're normally going to have to use this during your own activation. But they all work into all in a day's work, and this is their capstone card. And this kind of jumps off of them and combos with the special actions they use, so it just kind of makes special actions great. So already from everything in this preview article, one thing I see that looks great is like you can have a Chewbacca run up with a movement action. He can slam, then he can slam, and if he's the 11-point version of Chewbacca with his upgrade card, it doesn't cost an action, but still counts as a special action. So you can then all in a day's work and still have an action left after that focused attack from all in a day's work, or whatever you want to use that action with. So you can move slam and get 2 actions, including a focused attack. But there's a lot you can do with these Technicians cards. They're very versatile so far, and there's a wide range of figures that they work on. We see a number of Rebel and Scum and Empire figures here. I think Empire's kind of got the short end of the number of Technicians they have. I think they're limited to E-Webs and General Sorin, which is kind of unfortunate, but, you know, Scum and Rebel's got a lot of toys here to play with in these Technicians. And then we move down here to a name you might have seen missing and from the list. One of the campaign heroes is Saska Teft. And she, you would think, would be a shoo-in for being a technician, and she is. They are going to try and retrain her again in IACP. There's TV Boy reaching for me on the Discord. If you guys just saw that pop up in the bottom corner. Yeah, guys, I see us at 3 viewers right now. Oh, actually, we're getting 4. No, we're at 3. But we get a few more, and we will unlock the first of the spoilers. But back to Saska. So she's now a technician smuggler spy, which is kind of nice. So depending on the strength of the technician trait, this could make her a lot stronger. And again, we'll see more of their command cards come out over the next couple of weeks through these spoiler articles. They said there's 7, so we at least have 4 more to see. Now, Saska, I know not a lot of people would bring, but apparently she's very popular amongst Imperial Assault fans for her quirky personality and abilities, and we've often get requests to give her another update as her Season 3 recast still left players feeling uninspired. I didn't know people liked her personality. I haven't seen much of that personally, but she does seem cool. She does have the shady contacts, so she is the only way to bring in one of the only ways to bring in non-rebel characters into a rebel list. So in this retrain, she keeps that. But where she used to have an ability to have an unstable device, she would throw it, it's like a grenade, and it would hurt her and maybe hurt an opponent. They retrained that and gave her a new kind of token passing ability. They talk here about how they drew from some of her iconic campaign abilities and her iconic ability to bring a scum deployment, so they wanted to keep that. So instead of trying to fix her unstable device action to create another kind of grenade ability that was already seen done more successfully in other cards, they looked back to abilities from her campaign version to grab inspiration for how she could become a prominent support piece in Rebel list building. And I think the idea here would be to make her a decent 4-point deployment card without making her... and still have shady contacts. Like, once we look at this, I think she actually might be worth taking. Both of her surges have been upgraded. I believe she originally just had a Pierce 1 surge down here, and she had a +1 accuracy. So if we look at the original Saska, she used to have +1 damage, +1 accuracy, and a second +1 damage. So gotta cut a couple of those out. So the +1/+1 accuracy has been upgraded to a +2 damage, +1 accuracy. That's a +2 damage on a 4-cost figure. And then she also has a second +1 surge with a Pierce 1. So in a lot of cases, this is like having a second +2 surge. And then she also has a weakened stun surge, which has always been there, but has always been pretty strong. But now, once during your activation, a friendly figure in your line of sight may gain 1 device token. Already I have a question about whether she can give this to herself, but this is not a special action, it's just free. Just you see someone and you give them a device token. Now, what do the device tokens do? They interact with her new ability, Power Converter. Once per round, while a friendly figure with a device token is attacking, it may reroll 1 attack die. Before rerolling, you may replace that die with another attack die of any color, but it is considered rerolled. So here, this kind of makes her a great support piece in that she kind of brings in Lando's ability. If you guys know from, we can pull up on here. So the IACP version of Lando, and I think the original version too, has an ability where he can reroll a dice with Resourceful, but he also has Gambit. Before he rerolls a die, he can swap it with another color die of the same type, but it's considered rerolled. So Sasuke can now do that for your entire army. It's only once per round, and with her stat line of 7 health, 4 speed, and being a 4-point figure that's a smuggler, I think she kind of lines up being very close to another version of Hera, but she distinguishes herself. Here we go. So I'm going to pull up Hera for comparison. So we see here Hera and Sasuke. They're both smugglers. Hera's a leader, but Sasuke has both Technician and Spy, Spy being a very powerful trait, as we know. Sasuke does have these stronger surges. However, Hera is a 3-die attacker. She gets a blue die added on to Sasuke's green-yellow. They both have 7 health and 4 speed. Sasuke rolls white for defense, while Hera rolls black. Hera has the smooth landing, and that is useful in a lot of lists to get them out there and start moving towards their destination. But Sasuke has shady contacts where she can bring in a scum figure. So that's kind of 1-for-1 in that they're these completely different abilities, but they're very useful depending on the list you need. Now, Sasuke now has an ability to give figures rerolls once per round and replace the reroll die with a different color. Whereas Hera just adds a +1 damage or a +1 surge or a +2 accuracy to your results once per round. Now, the reason I say they're similar is because these are both once per round abilities, and if you think about re-rolling, let's say you re-roll a green die, you're going to miss accuracy, so you re-roll it into a blue. You're kind of hoping to get like a +1 or +3 accuracy there. Maybe you roll a green or a blue and you want some more damage, so you re-roll it into a red, or you're rolling a blue and you want more surges, so you re-roll into a yellow. You're kind of adding a +1 or a surge. So it kind of feels like it's that same kind of level of power, but the way Sasuke does it is so much more cool. It's such a unique ability. And while Hera is limited to someone within 3 spaces, Sasuke can do it map-wide as long as she previously gave them a device token. And again, they're both once per round, which is kind of where I start making these comparisons. And I'm not saying Hera's bad, I'm saying that it seems like Sasuke actually has a niche. Maybe some Hera lists will consider taking Sasuke now. We have Pawn 3D here. I'm not big into, with a comment, I'm not big into melee figures or the Jedi side of Rebels, but Sasuke's unique and interesting enough that I'm going to have to review their entire list to find the synergies. You're not big into the melee figures or the Jedi side of Rebels. Okay, well, you know, I get it. Not everyone's going to be into the Force users on Rebels, but, you know, Rebels have a lot of archetypes. If you're not into melee, you can just, you know, since I have this up, let's undo this. Let's look at Rebel figures. Rebels have a lot of smugglers. So you could play Chewbacca, who's now a technician. You could play Han Solo, who is like the capstone queen piece of Rebels. Okay, Ezra Bridger is a smuggler, but he's melee, so we can forget him. But there is an IACP Lando, who is a ranged figure. You know, Sasuke is really cool now, and she's a smuggler, so she synergizes with all of this. So already, you could run a smuggler list. I mean, you could throw Hera in there. You could maybe throw in, like, Khotun, just because she's really good as a support piece. Jin Odan. Like, already, I would say, you know, just because they're rebels and they're known to have the Jedi, that's not the only, you know, that's not the only list type you can make for rebels, for sure. You can definitely make a smuggler list, make a spy list. You could even make a trooper list in Rebels. Rebels have a lot of, like, stronger, unique troopers. They have Alliance Rangers, which used to be prominent. But you could run things like Cara Dune. You could run Rebel Salvadors. They're spies. That's like a blast-based list, which is ranged. You could run CT-17. He's got to retrain an IACP with Fen Cygnus and Khotun. That could be a core of troopers right there. There's just a lot you could run with Rebels that's not, you know, not focused on melee. So I hope you give that a shot, because Sasuke is really cool, and she actually seems to synergize a lot with what's already here. And I hope that, as I've seen Hera as a prominent support piece in certain lists, that Sasuke kind of finds that niche, not necessarily niche, but like where Hera's used a lot in these smuggler lists or lists with Cassian. You know, maybe some of these lists are ones that want to bring in a scum deployment card. You could actually use Sasuke Teft to bring in Miggs Mayfeld, who's a trooper smuggler, and build either a trooper or smuggler ranged list around Miggs Mayfeld and Sasuke Teft. Pre this preview, that's actually a list I wanted to run anyways, and now Sasuke just makes it a lot better. See if we get that back together. All right, we are at, we just had 4 concurrent viewers a second ago, so we're very close to unlocking that 5th card, or sorry, that first preview card. Let's see. Okay, from Noah, Sasuke does have line of sight to herself, so she can give herself a device token if she wants that reroll, which might be good. I mean, she's got so many good surges, you might just want to give her 2 yellow dice instead of yellow-green. Let's see, we've got Pawn 3D saying, I've definitely been sleeping on the various rebel archetypes. With the buff to support and disruption from Technician, I'm sure they can do some crazy powerful things. Ooh, I see it. We have 5 concurrent viewers. Guys, you know what that means. I'm going to drop whatever I'm doing. We don't need to look at Miggs for a second. We need to look at the thumbnail for this video. And as soon as I press the right button here, we're going to talk about our first Season 8 spoiler for this video. So this first card has been, you guys have just unlocked it. We've dropped down to 4 concurrent viewers, but that's fine. You guys hit the 5. We've hit the goal. Now, I saw some talk yesterday in the Discord saying, oh, there's actually some hints to what these cards are in the fuzzied out, blurred up images. And I didn't agree, but then someone messaged me privately about what they thought the hint was, and I thought that was a cool hint. I actually thought there was a hint for the second card over on the right, though. It turns out they were talking about the left. But enough chit-chatter. Let's get to our first Season 8 preview of the live stream. Here we have Elusive. This is a new spy command card that costs 1 command point. You use this while defending to choose 1 attack die and 1 defense die. Remove all symbols on the chosen die from the results. And then in parentheses, it says, symbols do not include accuracy results. Yep, Jake Peterson, achievement unlocked. New card shown. I just have to make sure I don't press right on my keyboard a little too early here and show you the next one too quick. So we have Elusive here, and actually, just tabbing back real quick, my version of the hint was that if you looked closely, maybe on mobile, on this card on the right with Cassian's art, you could see that there are no words like around that question mark on the trait requirement tab. So you could kind of tell that Cassian, or this card, Elusive, might have been a spy card. And I think it's crazy that we're getting more spy cards, but at least it's not another hand disruption card. We could say that. So, I actually ran spies quite a bit in Season 7, and I was running them in Empire, I was running ISBs, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. Like, I would probably drop the Tough Luck in my deck for this. But it doesn't seem overwhelming, like it's just going to protect one of my, ISBs, and I have like 4 of those and some other 5 or 6 point spies. And when I was talking to one of the committee members, they were like, yeah, this is great for like rebels or high point spies like Ahsoka or Davith. It's kind of like a reverse Fate from the Brawler archetype. 2 more comments here. Keep in mind that though the Khotun squad's cohesion is limited to rebels... Okay, so we're talking about the Saska Migs combo here. Saska Migs. I didn't realize that, Darth Nazriel. That is kind of unfortunate, but I think it'd still be a good list. And then we have Pon 3D saying, love me some spy cards. Plus, Andor was great, so it's fun to see him on another card. Yeah, it is. I think this is kind of definitely inspired by the show, being so popular and him hiding out. And I guess, with Smuggling Compartment last season, we had to get something to tell the spies we still love them. Kind of. And we have Pon 3D saying, oh dang, you're right. Yeah, just agreeing on that whole Saska Mix combo. But here we go. This is the first preview card for Season 8 on the live stream. We have one more coming up later. This is Elusive. So if you guys want to comment anything about the card, any reactions or first thoughts here, please go ahead and I can react to that. I'll be posting this as a separate video, the reveal here, just to try to spread the views without trying to get people roped into watching half an hour of my content just to get here. So I'll post this as a separate, kind of short video shortly after, talking about the card. But fun fact, this is we see something new here. In the bottom, we have in parentheses, the symbols do not include accuracy results. This is what the committee is calling reminder text. And this is just something they're kind of putting on to try to help with certain rule questions that might pop up on cards that have a little bit less text. And this is the first card I think we're seeing this on for Season 8. So, talking about the card itself, though, Brawlers have an offensive card like this called Feint, where you just pick an attack die and its defense die and you remove it from the results. And so that would be great against things like when you fight a white die figure and they roll a dodge, you can remove the dodge and remove your lowest rolled, damage die and still get some good damage across. Spies here kind of have the opposite, and a lot of spies tend to have white die, so they're a little squishier. But while they're defending, they could, let's say they don't roll the dodge, and they roll maybe a blank, or they roll a single block, or an evade. You can choose that die and get rid of it, and get rid of your opponent's, 3 damage red die, or get rid of their double surge yellow die, and just lower the damage output on that attack by quite a bit and potentially save some of your spies. So for 1 point, this is actually going to be a very good card for spy lists. And now we have Saska, who is more prominent and also a spy. And I also wanted to bring up Mock. He has been known as the cheapest spy in the game, especially for rebels that you can bring in. And his utility is just having the spy trait. He might be able to live through an attack with this. But I also wanted to point out that he also is now one of the game's technicians. I guess that was inspired by some of his campaign abilities. But if Technician turns out to be a very popular and very powerful trait, which I'm assuming the committee would love to have that happen, you can now take him for 2 traits instead of 1. But before we move on to our second article on the new cards coming out for Season 8, I'll just leave this up here for a moment and see if anyone has anything else to say about Cassian running from the law. And tell you what, we will get to the second card after we finish going through the preview articles. But if we can get to new goal, 6 viewers, I'll drop everything and show you guys it immediately. Let's see, Reverse Feint is nice. Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think we have a few more spies that are a little more prominent now. So let me minimize this. So yeah, that is Elusive, the first of our 2 cards today. So, like I said, Mock gets the Technician trait, and Jared gets the Technician trait, and Saska. Saska gets a Retrain and the Technician trait, and those 3 are all spies. So we have 3 spy technicians in Rebels, and they're going to make great use of this card. In fact, maybe they all go good in the list with Cassian. You can make smuggler spy technicians. We'll see. Elusive to counter Feint. Playing Elusive to counter Feint must feel incredible. Hold on a second. What? Does that even work? Playing Elusive to counter Feint. So if your opponent would use this first because it's an on-attacker ability, you choose 1 attack die and 1 defense die, and remove your results from the attack and defense results. And then Elusive. Okay, I guess I have a question, rules question here. Can you play Elusive if your opponent has already removed your die? Can you play this if your opponent plays Feint? Can you still choose 1 attack die and choose the non-existent defense die, and just remove one of your opponent's attack die? Can you do this to counter Feint? Can you do this on an element of surprise attack? I think we have a committee member or 2 in the chat here, so hoping we can get a answer for that. Let's see. Darth Nazriel, yeah, I haven't thought of that. That's really funny. Yeah, the Elusive Feint counter maneuver. Let's see, Element of Surprise. Use while defending to choose 1 attack die and 1 defense die. Remove all symbols on the chosen dice from their results. Yeah, I don't know how the wording on that actually works if there is no current defense die on the card, or if you do I think it's heightened reflexes to remove the defense die, because your opponent would get to play all of these before you have the chance to play Elusive, since attacker effects go first. But it would be a good counter. let's see. In terms of the reminder text, I think TV Boy is trying to make IA into magic. Well, that might be so. But I do like it. I think, I mean, this is the first card we've seen it on like the first 10, 12 cards of the season. So we're not going to see it all over the place. But I think it's useful. It's not hurting anybody. As long as we don't see mana costs on the next CCs, we should be fine. We already have our command cost. That's enough. Command point cost. Oh, and then Pon 3D says, as long as we don't hit Yu-Gi-Oh levels, I'm alright with it. That's what I would inadvertently do in his shoes, though, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I mean, Magic is fun, and I agree with Pon, though. As long as we don't hit Yu-Gi-Oh levels, that's fine. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh in high school until they released the white cards, and then they released the black cards, the Synchros and the XYZs. And then after that, it kind of got out of hand really fast. I think the best time for that card game was around Synchros and XYZs. Oh no! We're already at 6 concurrent viewers! Alright, I have to drop whatever I'm doing and show you guys the next one. Darn, you guys really wanted to get these previews back to back. Alright, here we go. Time to show you guys the second of my spoilers for the night. So we are going to go forward with the card that someone thought there was some good hints to in this blurred text. This is a card with Lando's art on it, Double or Nothing. We have a new Smuggler card in IACP Season 8. This is a card for 2 command points, and you use while attacking to choose a die. That die's controller has to reroll it. If the rerolled result has the same number of symbols as the original roll, you may double or cancel its results. Now this is interesting. You'll be able to print out the cards with reminder text without it. Okay, cool. And it's like borderless cards. You guys are still going on in the comments about that. This is Double or Nothing. This is our second preview, and you know, I was thinking of just telling you guys it was going to be Double or Nothing for the viewer counts, and we just got up to 8, so maybe I could have demanded double. I would have said Double or Nothing. We're going to double the viewer count to 10, or we're not going to get it early. But I did not want to stretch too far. So, yeah, this is the new card. This is a Smuggler card. So we have a new Spy card, a new Smuggler card released here. So this is 2 points, and it's a very good offensive tech for Smugglers. So what's really cool here is you can only use this while attacking, which actually adds some dichotomy to what we have going on with Elusive. Elusive is a defense-only card. This is an attack-only card. And this feels like the attacker version of something like Heightened Reflexes. Maybe we can... Yeah, Heightened Reflexes is used while attacking. Choose one defense die and remove it from the results. It's a Hunter card. This feels like the Smuggler version of that, where you could sometimes achieve that effect, or you could try and like pump your damage up, or you could try and just mitigate your opponent's defense results. So if your opponent rolls like the triple black block, you could make them re-roll that, and if they roll the triple black again, you just say, nah, no, let's cancel those results. If your opponent rolls a dodge, there's a 4 in 6 chance you can remove the results with the re-roll, even if it's a dodge. You can't use this while defending, though, so you can't use this to try to guarantee your own dodge. But you could re-roll a red die, and if it rolls triple damage, you could double that and make it a 6 damage attack. Donald Glover on a card! I'm gonna have to play this for sure. Plus, the gambling flavor is incredible. Yeah, and just a couple of cards for Season 8, we've seen basically 2 effects that are very similar to Lando. Sasuke's got one that she can apply to all the rebels, and now this is a new Smuggler card. And we've been talking about Sasuke being a smuggler, kind of working in synergy with other smugglers and technicians and spies. It looks like Smuggler, Technician, Spy might be a little archetype coming up in some way or another. Rebels, it seems, have a lot of new toys to play with. This definitely seems and feels like how a smuggler would get an attack bonus from Turu, unlike Tools for the Job. Props to the steering committee. Yeah. I hope that clap gets through. There's no mic cut off there, but this is a very flavorful card. It's very fun. A lot of Jawa love. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, we gotta worry about any kind of Jawa spam if it gets into the VP territory, but there's a lot of Jawa fun here. They got the new trait. They get to use double or nothing. It's good. Oh my god, imagine playing as a Jawa and going for the double 3 symbol face of the yellow die. However, double or nothing does not have this reminder text, so you gotta watch out and make sure you don't forget that you don't double your accuracy. I mean, how will we remember if there's no italicized symbol text? Yeah, a lot of love for the Jawas, and this is definitely a very flavorful card. Is this from the Han Solo movie? The prequel kind of movie where he was from, and he was actually played by Donald Glover? Because that is another movie I need to catch in the Star Wars universe. But alright guys, we have gotten through both of the new previews. I do have to give good props on this. It is definitely the smuggler version of heightened reflexes, though I'm now scared that smugglers can now run... They basically have their own version of tools heightened. Oh boy, and I guess if you could run a smuggler hunter list and just run all 3 of these now. Man, I think Assassinated's got to run for its money. There's too many other cards that you could just run in your hunter-smuggler lists. This is one less point you could fit something else in, too. Jawas need double accuracy, though. They kind of do. They kind of need the double accuracy. But the art is lovely, according to April Sommer. And yeah, April, I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah, I do love the art for this one, too. I agree with it. Just reminds me that I need to go see Solo, a Star Wars story at some point. Unfortunately, I've heard that one is not that great. But all right. Yeah, going back to the first article, that's a lot of Jawa buffs. That's a Dr. Afra buff. She's a technician, smuggler, and she gets access to this. I think quite a number of our smugglers are... see if I can zoom in here. Quite a number of our new technicians are old smugglers, and I think they were smugglers because technician didn't exist. So the Ugnaught Tinkerers, they weren't really smugglers, but they are because they used to be. They're not going to take that away. Afra, technician smuggler. Chewbacca, okay, he actually is a smuggler. But the Jawas, they're kind of smugglers, but they're definitely technicians. But yeah, a number of smugglers with the technician trait here. Also Saska. Which makes sense with her shady contacts. But yeah, that's the big preview I had for you guys today. I don't have anything currently for next week, but if anything pops up, I'll definitely start posting this everywhere again and see if we can get up to 10 viewers if I can demand that kind of viewing power. Thanks for the spikes in the engagement, the viewership, everyone. We can keep talking about this. We are going to go over the second preview article here with Mr. Video Game Man. But really, I want to talk about one of the other cards that we see on this preview article. I think we should talk about Orbital Bombardment, because this card's insane. This is a 4-point skirmish upgrade, guys. This is what the community has created. This is our monster. For those who don't know, there was a Season 8 Community Makes a Card competition, and the community got to balance and create their own card from scratch, and we decided to create a monstrosity. So this is, the idea here is, oh, hang on, we got one from 2Aru. Technician exists between spy and smuggler. Most spies and smugglers feel like they could be technicians if forced. Yeah, I think the justification for Chewbacca being a technician was that he spends most of the 6th movie with a wrench in his hand fixing up either C-3PO or the ship. Apparently. It's been a long time since I've seen that one. We clearly can't be trusted with creating a community card. I don't know. I think we're just going to have to put this one through the ringer and see what happens. But a 4-point skirmish upgrade seems bonkers. Like, maybe this should have been 3. I'm not talking about how strong it is. I just can't see people taking a 4-point upgrade card. And they put the caveat here. This is a community design. This is our final version now. So this was actually released yesterday. This is our final version we voted on. So this can go on any unique figure with a figure cost of 4 or more. It's a neutral skirmish attachment. And this figure gains a new special action, which, hey, special action. This works with technicians now, all in a day's work, right? Place bombardment tokens on this card equal to the current round number, then you may perform an attack. And that was kind of part of the idea here is it's the idea of calling in air support. Because in Star Wars, Imperial Assault, this is all these skirmish battles with people on the ground fighting, and you never really see spaceships. And this game really doesn't support that. There's no fighting from spaceships. But we said, what if we had a card where you have someone sitting in the corner, or not necessarily that, but you have someone on their terminal the whole time, on their comms, like, hey, we need some air support. We can't win this fight alone. And eventually, the last second, the ships finally make it through the blockade, and they start raining down Hail Mary fire and destroying the enemy's tanks and their overwhelming forces. And that's how they're able to save the day. And we've seen that a lot of times in Star Wars, and that seems to be the best kind of representation we could come up with for Imperial Assault to represent spaceships in Star Wars. Basically a nod to them. Now, I guess it makes sense that you're giving up a good part of your army here, a 10th of your army in 4 points to get air support, which is way stronger than a lot of the figures on the ground. But design-wise, I think this, will have to go through a few revisions. But you place bombardment tokens on this card equal to the current round number, and then you may perform an attack. And then the bottom half of this is, at the start of your activation, you can deplete this card to choose a number of spaces equal to the number of bombardment tokens that are on or were on this card. Each figure on one or more of the chosen spaces suffers 2 damage, and each figure adjacent to one or more of those spaces suffers 1 strain. So again, you kind of charge up for the first 2 rounds of the game, and then round 3, you just hit them with a Hail Mary. And you're just going to carpet bomb the entire map. Now, luckily, this is kind of balanced around the number of rounds in the game. So, most games kind of had their big final round on round 3. Sometimes it goes to round 4. And it's an attachment, so if you take out the figure holding this card, you stop the bombardment. And you also win 4 VPs. So, stopping this is kind of a big gambit on whoever takes this. They're risking 4 VPs and kind of limiting the size and power of their army to get a huge VP or just a huge power swing near the end of the game and basically carpet bomb whatever's left of their opponent's army, either 3 or 6 figures depending on when you decide to launch it, for just 2 damage and 1 strain in a lot of cases. Let's see, we have a few more comments. We clearly can't be trusted with creating a community card. I read that one. And then, bold of you to assume that most spies and smugglers could repair a broken down vaporator. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that most spies and smugglers are technicians. I think that most technicians that were already in the game were just slapped on the smuggler trait because it was pretty close. I think that's what happened. Or spies. They were given the spy trait. One or the other. Saska Teft, she was a smuggler spy. I don't really know that she's both, Smuggler kind of being like she has these shady contacts, but is she really spying with the Empire? I don't know. I don't play the Star Wars role-playing game, but if she's from anything else, was she really a spy so much as just a technician smuggler? I know Mach was a spy, but like, again, the Ugnaught Tinkerers, were they really smugglers? Or do they just build robots and that's what they do? And they really could have gotten away with just being technicians. That's kind of what I think. Alright, let's see. I hope orbital bombardment doesn't encourage too much sitting around in deployment zones. So, actually, where was it? Here. So, Tuaru, to address that, actually, one of the stipulations on this card is, it's a special... First of all, you have to put it on a figure with a cost of 4 or more. So you have to, this is at least an 8-point investment, and you want it on someone that's not going to die to a single attack, because if it dies, you're giving up a lot. You need to keep that person alive at all costs. Now, yes, you could keep them kind of in the deployment zone, but the special action includes an attack, and you might think that makes it kind of busted because you're doing so much with the one action, but that was kind of to encourage people to, slap this on Luke Skywalker, have him run out to the fields and, call on his comms for air support while he's out there shooting. Or maybe Han Solo's a better evocative choice of that. Have Han running through the fields and trying to protect himself while he gets off his end-of-round shot, but also he's trying to call for air support because he's overwhelmed and getting outgunned. So the attack there was put there to try to mitigate that, and so is the figure cost of 4 or more. I think that was a good idea, the 4 or more cost, because I originally wanted it to not have that stipulation, but then people were like, we don't want your opponent, to lose the game if they're unable to run across the map and blow up your R2. Otherwise, you're really just going to stick R2 on your terminal and have him press the draw card button and the bombardment button for a bunch of turns. Jabba lol. Yeah, you can put this on Jabba. He can sit there and do that. But I think in that case, your opponent's running up and killing Jabba. And hey, Jabba's... he's not getting that attack off. He's probably not. But, if Jabba is playing orbital bombardment, he is not drawing a card and focusing each round. So it might be a little safer to run up to him and beat him up and take 10 points off of him if he puts this on himself. I think actually Saska might be a good fit for orbital bombardment. She throws out her device tokens and then maybe goes to hide across the map. Plays things like elusive to make sure she's not... Oh, God. She can play elusive and, hide in plain sight. You can have Mern, hide her. Just have Saska run away and let her get the reroll benefits to the rest of the team while she hides. Oh, no. Oh, no, I just thought of something. Can we do Devith orbital bombardment with Vanish? Is that going to be a list? Orbital Devith? Is that going to be a new list? That's... You cannot suffer damage or receive conditions until your next activation, and then you get 4 movement points at the start. Oh, God. Orbital Devith is... that might be a problem. Let's see. I think you can just put Bombardment on Jabba. You lose a bit of utility, but he's safe. Maybe in Urscrew he's safe, but not on some of these smaller maps. You're sending your army down to take out Jabba. He's worth 10 points. A 10-point Jabba with an army that at most has 30 points of not Jabba, and he's not drawing you as many cards or focusing as many figures. You could do it. I don't know how good that's going to be. I think Orbital Devith might be a problem. Let's see. Turu said that was more my point right there with how figures needed a trait so they got Spy or Smuggler. Yeah, okay, I get you, Turu, talking about the technicians. And then Jabba, lol. Noah says, I thought it was important not to take anything away from figures that gained the technician trait. For people that aren't into the whole technician thing, that would have just been a nerf to them. No, I agree, Noah. Like, the game's been out for so long, we don't want to take things away from cards. We don't want to nerf them. Because, like, you know, maybe no one's playing Ugnaught Tinkerers, but the people that did played them with smuggler cards, I assume, back when people would play them. Same thing with Jawas. If they didn't need to be smugglers, people would still play them as smugglers. I actually had a question about why Technician trading doesn't include Saska. Like, I understand that no one would play base game Saska, and now the new version, or the semi-new version, is going to be retired, but I mean, does this Saska, 6-point Saska from the game, technically have Technician now? If you want unstable device, throw a grenade Saska, does she have Technician? Like, I don't think, you know, it's kind of like that regular E-Web. No one's playing regular E-Webs, but if you do, they're technicians. Is Saska also a technician? I think that's a question that someone might ask one day, and I'm asking it for them now. Yeah, a change to IA 2.0 would be like, let's rebalance some traits. But that would also be adding in more traits in IA 2.0. It's just figures having traits that they didn't necessarily need is just kind of one of the holdovers of having, you know, new traits added later on. Like if I guess if FFG added the new trait, I don't know how they would handle the old cards. But they didn't add a new trait. So IACP did. And that's what we're going with here. Okay. But yeah, back to orbital bombardment. I guess we'll see orbital Jabbas, which sounds funny. I wonder what else might be really kind of busted with orbital bombardment. At this point, we can pull this over here. Alright guys, can we think of any orbital bombardment combos that are going to break the game so we can get some big changes in 7.1? Orbital... Oh wait, doesn't Gerard have a lot of new abilities to like evade things with today's card? Orbital Jared might be a thing. It needs unique figures. If it didn't need unique figures, we could Orbital Rancor. Because those things are freaking hard to kill. Imagine Herbie's second Rancor sitting in the back with orbital bombardment. Luckily, we fixed that. We made sure that didn't happen, guys. At least the community did that with the card. Let's see. Anyone with the smuggler and spy? Oh my god. Someone like Saska with Smuggler and Spy can grab Orbital Bombardment, give map-wide support, and also play On the Lam. They can play On the Lam, Hide in Plain Sight, and Elusive. Like, they can play a lot to hide. What else? Second Chance, MHD, but it might not be worth it to put your entire army around this card. That's the thing. I don't think that the juice is exactly worth the squeeze for how much you have to do to squeeze everything you can out of this. Yes, 2 damage and a strain to like all of your opponent's figures is big, but if you put half of your army into that, it probably isn't worth it. Let's see. I like that we got to blame all of you for a change if orbital bombardment is broken. Yeah, yes. We have, and then the steering committee will say, and I don't want to ever hear any crap from the community about when we release a broken card ever again after the orbital bombardment incident. I can see that happening. Let's see. Ahsoka could run away, but I don't think she's perfect for orbital. Maybe we need to look at these 4-point figures. Orbital bombardment Yoda. He woke up and chose violence. Not that there's a giant synergy there, but yeah, it's a good thing it doesn't work on things like Bib and R2-D2, Chopper, and like your normal terminal sitters. You have to actually put a decent-sized character there. Orbital Afra might be usable. Like, she can run around the map and hide, and she provides support just by being alive. And she usually comes up as a late-game sweeper, but she has a 3-die attack. Doc Afra might be really good with orbital bombardment. I was thinking about Orbital Saw. He does provide map-wide support, but I don't think he's getting played enough right now, and that's kind of why I didn't think of it. He's a really good attacker, though. If you can focus him, I love attacking with Saw. And he can hide, too. Yeah, Orbital Saw might be worth it, and it kind of seems thematic that he would be the one to, like, yeah, let's just, burn the rice fields, burn everything. Destroy everything. That seems like a very Saw Gerrera thing to do. Yeah, Orbital Saw might be a good one. What else we got? Orbital MHD. Any Miracle Works himself. I'm most worried about Orbital Devith, though. Orbital Malicos. Just throw boulders and, hang on back and let the rest of your Scum Force users, play their command cards. Ooh, wait, Scum Force users aren't very good. But maybe an Empire Orbital Terran might be something. I don't think you want to run Orbital Mara. She could do other things. Ooh. Orbital Hondo, trying to get to your opponent's victory, or get to your opponent's deployment zone for their victory royale. Still, at that point, I think you just slap it on Jabba. But I think we can stop looking at ways to break this card already. I'm sure the community will figure it out. But gosh, seeing that in the preview gallery is kind of worrying. That's a lot of words on that card. It does a lot. The tables will have turned, yes. Yeah, it's going to be all of our faults if Orbital Bombardment is busted. The Hive Mind did not do a good job there. Alright, I think we could take a look at the second preview article we've gotten so far. Go through that. No one's played Scum Force users since the end of the Season 7 playtest, sadly. Turu, that is not true. I played it in the first, I think the first big tournament we did, and the first competitive league. That is something I tried to make work for a very long time. It was my favorite list out of Season 7, and it just wasn't... I could not make it work very well. However, I mean, I'll actually pull it up. I'll pull up what I was running. I really wanted that to work, and I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it did not matter very much. This is supposed to be Maul Brawl, but it's Male Brawl because I misspelled it, and you can't change things on Tabletop. So we only have 3 Scum Force users, so obviously you run them. Maul, Mara, and Terran. Jabba, because he's Jabba. And then I ran Doc Afra, Bib Fortuna, the Darksaber, Black Market, and I needed a 4th attacker, so I threw in Shyla. Because while she isn't a Force user, She has the Mandalorian Whip to kind of get some extra range. She also pulls, and she's a brawler, so she adds the Parting Blow synergy. She's the extra evade, so she's a little tanky, and she heals each turn or gets an extra movement point, so she has the movement. And she has Surge for +2, Surge for Pierce 2, so she almost has the Jedi surges of +2 Pierce 3. Well, like Mara and Terran. And the Cleaves 2 is not bad. So I would run her, and then it would be Lure of the Dark Side. Great card. Parting Blow, I only fit one in here. Dying Lunge, Force Surge, worth every credit. No 2 Parting Blows, because worth every credit was very important for the second, just more movement points and removing harmful conditions. Dark Energy for the push, Negation, Death Blow, Blade Storm, Looking for a Fight, Opportunistic, Element, Planning, Take Initiative, and Urgency. So one piece of advice I got was, hey, drop Element of Surprise. A lot of your attacks are already going to start your activation in line of sight. Drop that for Force Rush because you're not running Force Rush. Let's see. No one's played... sadly, I thought it was cool too. What about Forlom? He's a Force user. Okay. I thought of that. I don't like Forlom. I mean, if you look at this list, you've got Shyla, 7 points, 12 health, and a free evade, and she recovers. Maul, 6 points, 7 with the Darksaber, but he's immortal until you basically decide to have his last turn. Mara, who's got the speed to run up and smack somebody, 11 health. Terran with his 11 health and his extra surge, and you kind of have him hang back a little bit. Forlom, 7 points and 9 health, and I have never been able to get over that. And he doesn't have a +2 surge or +2 surge. His surges are kind of okay, in my opinion. His shared intuition isn't going to go off in this list. I mean, Shyla's here, but you would replace Shyla with Forlom. So he would be a droid force user for most of the game. He's not going to get shared intuition, so his damage is going to be a little low. He would be ranged, but he does have Concussive Bolt, which has a push. But the other thing is, I was trying to make it Force user and Brawler, and have a lot of melee synergy. So Shyla worked for that. But Terran's not a Brawler. So if you swap Shyla for Forlom, Forlom could be a Brawler for a round, but if you want him as a Force user, you can't do both at the same time. And because Terran's not a Brawler, you only get 2 Brawlers. You had to. Not sure what you're saying you had to. 2? But I saw on the Slack, I think it was Josh posted a list, his list, and basically, I actually want to run it. You don't do Shyla. You don't do Bib. And you don't do Black Market. Instead, you Temporary Alliance in your Gideon and your Ezra. So now you have Ezra Bridger, Force User Smuggler, Maul, Force User Brawler, Mara Jade, your Force User Brawler, and Smuggler, and Terran, your Force User Leader. And then Doc Aphra is a 3rd Smuggler here. Jabba's technically a 4th, but that's okay. You lose Bib, so you lose a little bit of damage. I found that the list did do a lot of damage when it hit, but the problem was there still wasn't enough movement to get hits, and there wasn't enough defense. This version of the list adds Ezra, who moves 4 for free each round, gets the rerolls for even more damage to kind of make up for lacking in Bib. Gideon, you don't have to pay for a second focus because you can't, but you still get 1 each round and you get more movement points. Temporary Alliance, you do have to give up the Black Market for that to get this to work. But you don't have Bib anymore. And then what's really cool, though, is you can take Learn by Example. You play this card as a copy of a Force User Command card in any discard pile, ignoring the faction restrictions. You take that in the list, you make it less about Brawlers, but you have Learn by Example. You can play Lure the Dark Side, You can learn by example to play it again from your discard pile as either Ezra or Mara. And then later in the game, you have Dr. Aphra excavate learn by example to play Lure of the Dark Side a third time. And Lure of the Dark Side is that kind of card that I feel like if I'm losing the entire match, a Lure of the Dark Side can swing things into my favor. So playing it 2 to 3 times in a game is insane. The 3 Scum Force users, you said. Oh, what's this? You had to mention him at least. Yeah, Forlom. Okay, Forlom exists. He's a Scum Force user sometimes. Forlom is cursed to forever be a creature. he could be a technician now. We'll see. He literally tried to learn how to use the Force in one of the old books, though. And this is Grogu Erasure. Hey, I didn't erase Grogu. The steering committee erased Grogu from the Fallen Master ability. Let's be fair here. Friendly non-companion Force users may ignore the Empire restriction when using command cards. Sorry, but the child, that was too strong. I was running Garkan Child, and I think I had Terran in there, and I think I was just trying to run Brawlers, but no, I was trying to run Force Scum Force users, and instead of Shyla or Ezra, my fourth was Garkan in 7.0. And he was a Force user because I brought the child on him. And the child played Lure of the Dark Side. And, I was losing an entire game, won Lure of the Dark Side, and I was, almost winning. And it was too good. It was too good. I'm sorry, but Grogu is not ready to embrace the dark side. He's not even sure, he's not ready. He's only 50 years old, man. Give him some more time before he decides to take the path of darkness. But I do want to try out this list. The Ezra, Maul, Mara, Terran as the core. Because I think Ezra being able to run up and then having learn by example as a sub-combo here, trying to get everything else to work, would be really good. I think then the only other thing is you would want to take the Forbidden Knowledge card, just in case your Terran falls. Because then at least Mara could still play Learn by Example. Because the entire thing here falls apart if Terran falls. Because then no one can lure the dark side. Actually, hold on. You could just run this in Rebels. You can ignore faction restrictions on Learn by Example, so this is just an easy way to play Lure of the Dark Side in Rebels. Huh. Well, that's interesting. But I guess it does work here, even without Terran, because you can Learn by Example if Terran dies, as long as you have Maul... As long as you have Mara or Ezra alive, you can Learn by Example Lure of the Dark Side. And that's really good. And then you can, again, excavate it and play it a third time. Which, again, seems to work really well. The only thing is you would definitely need to play it the first time before Terran dies. Oh, but Maul can play it too. Maul can play it Lure of the Dark Side normally. So, yeah, you can get this combo off at some point in the game as long as, your entire core attackers aren't all dead, in which case you're not winning the game, probably. Or you're at the very end of the match, and if that combo falls apart, it's late enough in the game that you're on the... you've had your chance. Okay. That was a lot of fun, talking about that. But we should go to a new Jedi that's shown up. So we're finally getting Video Game Man in IACP Season 8. You're excited to have the opportunity to spoil some new Season 8 content. Having finally played the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order recently, I'm more than excited to present to you what you've all been asking and waiting for. Cal Kestis! So, I've not played Fallen Order. I just know that Terran Malicos is from it. And I was one of the people that had to ask a bunch of times, wait, why is Video Game Man's like middle of the game bad guy that shows up for a little bit in this, but not the main character? Well, it turns out it's because he's a technician, and technician was a Season 8 mechanic. So, they just went with Terran for Season 7. But now we have Season 8 Cal Kestis. He is an 8-point Jedi Force User Technician with surges for +2, Pierce 3, Cleave 2, and again, Cleave 2. He's got 2 abilities, Wall Run, which is cool. It's a special action, which, as a technician, is pretty cool. He can move a number of spaces up to your speed. During this movement, you may ignore terrain in spaces that share an edge or corner with a wall. And then Force Slow. At the start of a round, choose a hostile figure within 3 spaces. That figure's group cannot be activated during its owner's next opportunity to resolve an activation. And he's got 13 health, 5 speed, and a white defense die. Although I wonder, your opponent must choose one of his or her ready groups and must activate it next to Fable. Okay, so he doesn't exactly combo like with Kanan. You can't like force vision. Well, what happens if you force vision into Force Slow? Wait. Okay, so Force Vision is at the start of your activation, your opponent chooses one of his or her ready groups and must activate it next if possible. And then Force Slow is they cannot activate the group during its owner's next opportunity to resolve an activation. So I think that just means that Force Slow overrides Force Vision. But they talk a little bit about his lore, and then they talk about his surges, and they talk about giving him a couple of cleaves, and then they talk about his wall run special action. So instead of having a mobile, they gave him a new way to implement like his video game parkour skills. So it shows you like this part of Erskine Entertainment District. He can ignore all of these terrains because they touch the black edges of the map. I don't think you... So you move a number of spaces up to your speed, which is 5, which is cool because you kind of ignore this terrain. You move 5 full spaces, like ignoring difficult terrain. So, they actually show here that you can't ignore these blue difficult terrain spaces in the middle of the map because they're not next to a wall. But actually, you're not gaining movement points. You're moving a number of spaces up to your speed. So Cal Kestis can move, like in this example, he can actually move into where that X is next to him for one of those spaces. It's not because it's next to a wall, it's because it's moving a space, and that ignores difficult terrain. So he could do that. And then, of course, he can run into these unpassable walls if he so chooses to, as long as they're next to the wall. So that's cool. That's a new way to move in this game. You lose Mara on Smuggler... Or sorry, I think I missed a few comments here. Rebel's self-mill strategy for learn plus lure. And then Noah said you lose Smuggler, Amara, and Rebel. Well, Noah, I think if you do if you do the learn plus lure combo, it's not really about being a smuggler. Like, if you're doing Scum Force users, I think, this all works. You have a Force user smuggler, you have Force user brawler smuggler, you've got a Force user brawler, and you can, like, make the smuggler combo work because Afra's here. But if you go into Rebels, if you were to do this in Rebels, you would want Ezra, you'd want to bring Mara for the synergy. You might want to bring Leia just because she can replay command cards. And in that case, you're kind of all over the place with your like other traits, but you do have the Force user trait as your like glue to hold everything together. But I think at that point, it's not so much a smuggler list as it is a Force user, learn by example, lure of the dark side list. You could... Oh, you know what? In that case... Oh, God, we lost her. But Saska. You do New Saska, and you bring in Terran Malicos. There we go. She can bring in Terran now. Which means you can lure the dark side with all of your Force users for 4-point support that is going to give rerolls to everyone. And I think Terran Malicos is exactly the kind of man that could benefit from a reroll from time to time. Rolling those 2 red dice, sometimes hitting the buttholes. And then back to Cal Kestis, his second ability, Force Slow, is very powerful to kind of control your opponent's ability to use last activation, first activation tactics. In fact, you could even combine this on Cal Kestis with Disable up here. So you have Cal Kestis maybe wall run up to somebody, and then he's going to disable them, and now they can't use a surge ability, they can't use special actions, and you do this as a last activation for Cal, or your last activation. You've effectively neutered the attack of whoever you just disabled, and then you pick somebody else within 3 spaces at the end of his turn, or basically at the start of the round, to not be able to go next. So you could kind of neuter your opponent's ability to last activate, first activate by kind of like picking 2 of their best pieces and saying, they're not really going to do much this next, until my next turn, basically. So I think Force Slow with Disable is a good combo on Cal. Now you might think, but if Cal wall runs into to run up to somebody and disables them, that's his whole turn. Well, not if you all in a day's work to get a focused extra action, which could be an attack out of it. And also, not if you play his command card, which is to bring in his buddy, BD1, who is also a droid technician. And BD1 could activate at the end of Cal's turn and then use Disable. Basically use Disable. So this is cool, though. This is the first companion that gets brought in originally by a command card. It's a 2-point command card that basically just deploys BD1. It goes in your space, and then for the rest of the mission, it activates at the start or end of your activation. So that's cool. That's cool. I don't really have too much to say about Video Game Man, except that he's, cool. He's a Force user technician. And Video Game Man's second video game, The Seconding, is coming out soon. And every time I look at this picture up here, he is reminding me of Homelander for some reason. And then we get Personal Energy Shield, which is the 4th of the, I think, 7 command cards for Technician this season. So this card you can use during your activation to gain an evade token, and while defending during this round, you apply +1 block to your defense results for each evade. So you essentially get cunning, but you have to use it during your activation. So you can't, use it at the start of a round like a lot of great other defensive cards like Survival Instinct work. Survival. There we go. So yeah, you have cards like Survival Instincts that you use at the start of your activation until the end of the round, apply +1 block and +1 evade to your defense results. This is a very strong card, especially with the Rancors, and there are cards like it that basically apply a defensive buff to figures, and you play them at the start of a round, and they're really good. Cards like Personal Energy Shield that activates at the start of your activation tend to be a little weaker because you have to wait until your turn starts in order to play them. However, hearkening back to Noah's kind of talk about the theme, this does seem like a good card. You get a free evade power token, and you get cunning basically for the rest of the round. And it's versatile. Technicians do a lot, but to make up for it, they're a little clunkier. So you have to kind of wait until your turn, until they're actually able to tinker with their wrenches and stuff to actually fix the problem, which is to deploy the energy shield. Now, what's actually funny is when I first saw this, I thought, Hey, is this a retrain? Because I've seen this art before. I've definitely seen this art before. But it shows up in campaign mode, so it's a reused art asset. And I think it's on some kind of similar card that does some kind of shield. It might be an item from the campaign. But I think it's a cool little tech card. But, Orbital Bombardment Saska now has another way to defend herself. Same with Doc Afra. And yeah, then they talk about Survival Instincts and Fuel Upgrade being like start of round cards, but, Technicians are a little clunkier, and kind of to balance it out, being 1 point and being so easy to use with Technicians, you gotta wait till your turn starts to play it. But then they talk about how many ways you can stack this, and that's kind of what balances it, because you can use this with something like Cunning to get even more blocks for your evades. If there was a Technician with Cunning. But you could use this, like, Gerard has a built-in evade, so he just gets an extra block for the round. You have someone else giving you block tokens or evade tokens, you can use that. C-3PO, with his distracting, gives you more blocks now. So personal energy shields could be very strong. Okay. So there were other things I wanted to do on this stream, but I think I want to end off with a guest article that I think Noah recommended me at some point by Dylan McGill. And it was posted in January, so this might not even be the right one. But this is IACP Skirmish Army Building Beyond Face Value. And I haven't read this. And it looks like it's kind of a long read, but it's a lot of pictures, and I like my books with pictures, so let's read it. Let's read it together here, and then we'll end off the stream with that. I was going to get into some Vassal Log reviews, but we'll have to hold that off for another stream. I wanted this to run about 2 hours, and I see this is an article. I think Noah recommended this to me, and I think it'd be good to read. A good read to end off on. Alright, so we've got a picture of Obi-Wan here, looking at all these different cards, and he looks, very visibly confused. So he's not sure how to build his list, I'm pretty sure. He's confused, like, what do you do with Firing Squad? What's Programming Override? How does that work with Beast Tamer? What's Distracting, and what's Cunning? Like, what do I pick? None of these look like things of the Force to me. So we're going to look at IACP Skirmish Army Building Beyond Face Value, and this is an article for new players. And I just haven't given this a read yet, so I thought it'd be a good way to end off. So this is from January 1st, or 30th, by Dylan McGill. So let's see what Dylan has to say, since we've spent the whole stream so far on the IACP site for the most part. When I first dipped my toes into the skirmish side of Imperial Assault, I randomly slapped together some cards that added up to 40 points, making a team for each faction. FFG cards only, of course. Next, I found a tier list online and put together teams of mainly Tier 1 and Tier 2 characters. After a few round robins tournaments, I realized that the Mercenary faction was always winning due to the common synergy of Hunter and Smuggler traits, while my other lists had many different traits. I then entered the IACP community and threw together as many IACP deployments as possible to test out what I could from the somewhat overwhelming amount of new choices. Luckily, we have a very friendly community of members who are more than willing to suggest ways to improve your list. I quickly learned that the importance of including multiple figures with a couple of common traits in order to allow for a more useful command deck, where cards aren't wasted after figures start being defeated. I also learned why Rebel Care Package, RCP, Gideon Argus, R2D2, C-3PO, is included in like every Rebel list, and Zillow Technique and Rule by Fear are in every Imperial list. From here, I started actually winning the odd game, or at least having more close games with good chances. One of the goals of Imperial Assault Continuity Project is to bring all cards to a similar power cost level. Being on its 7th season, where some cards that were previously adjusted are being revisited, the difference in power between the best 7-point figure, for example, and the worst 7-point figure has gotten a lot smaller. At this point, creating a competitive list seems to involve more than just a group of good deployments with similar traits. It is necessary to find interactions between deployments that amplify their abilities or mitigate their weaknesses. Therefore, I've come up with a list of such interactions that are commonly seen as you play more competitive matches. This article will focus solely on deployment cards, particularly pairs or small groups that work together to enhance each other's abilities, and an editor note from TV Boy. The original author occasionally references pre-IACP versions of cards. To keep the article from being too crowded with images, I've limited images to one version of each card, but you can use the Tabletop Admiral site to quickly search for a card and view both versions at once for easy comparisons. So from the Rebel faction, Dylan's going to talk about Han Solo, C-3PO, Kotun Farala, and Jin Odan. So this is the cunning, distracting, evade tokens strategy. And we see here we've got Han Solo, good picture, Rogue Smuggler, his upgrade card, C-3PO, Kotun, and Jin Odan. So I think this article might be a lot of things that we've seen before, like common synergies. This seems like a good list already. Like you have Han Solo, Jin Odan, who's like the mini Han Solo, and then you've got Kotun to support them and C-3PO to support them with evade distracting tokens. So although C-3PO should already be in almost every Rebel list as part of the Rebel care package anyways, and Han Solo is only usable within the Rebel faction due to his skirmish upgrade being Rebel only, Han Solo will always be accompanied by C-3PO, like next to him. This is because when Han sits adjacent to C-3PO, not only does he gain evade from the droid's distracting ability, but he gains a block due to Han's cunning ability. Kotun's adjustment in IACP, allowing for arms distribution to distribute a token of any type instead of only a damage or block token, means she can also give evades to Han to set off his cunning ability. Jin Odan is another Rebel smuggler figure with a cunning ability, which means she synergizes well with Han too. Keeping her close to Han where she can see potential threats and while they're approaching, also allows her to use Hair Trigger in an attempt to stun these threats. Your opponent will also think twice about whether their figure can survive a return fire shot from Han and a Hair Trigger shot from Jin, especially if they're both focused. Speaking of Kotun, her abilities obviously go well with the other token generators such as Cassian and CT-1701. She can also be used to provide an attack die reroll to figures with inconsistent attacks such as the Rebel Saboteurs with their enhanced dead precise ability, although Luke Skywalker, hero of the Rebellion, can do this more effectively with his inspiring ability. Okay, so here he's just talking about Rebel Saboteurs being good with Luke or Kotun, and then cards like Cassian and CT-17 going good with Kotun. Yeah, makes sense. Anyone that generates tokens goes good with Kotun because she buffs people's attacks when they have tokens. Yoda, or for Yoda lists, they work great with Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, and Channel the Force. Yeah, actually, one of the Vassal Logs I was going to do tonight, this is one of the ones that I had to deal with, the Force Deflection. I think Yoda uses a get behind me when I was going to kill Luke, runs up and he's like, now you take 3 retaliate damage, and Luke deals you an extra 1. And you didn't hit Luke and kill him. So Yoda was created to support Rebel Force users. However, pairing him specifically with Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, can be especially scary for the opponent. Luke's deflect ability allows him to throw an unblockable damage at a hostile figure in his line of sight every time he or an adjacent figure is attacked. Yoda has a once per round force deflection with the same trigger, however. His ability returns damage equal to the number of attack die rolled back at the attacker. Tempted to break through a strong defenses, someone may want to have a 3-die attack or take a focused shot at one of the two. If the attacker is in line of sight to Luke and the two mentioned are adjacent to each other, this will result in the attacker suffering 5 unblockable damage, and good luck getting a surge through if you target Luke with 3PO standing right behind him. Another interesting interaction is between Yoda's Wisdom ability and Channel the Force. The slight downside of Wisdom is having to return a card to the bottom of your command deck. However, given the wording, if Channel the Force is exhausted to replace the Draw 1 command card with searching your deck for a card with a Force user trait, then the player did not actually draw a card with Wisdom. The required conditions for the second part of Wisdom are not met, and no cards are placed on the bottom of the deck, quoted from the FAQ. Yeah, I think this is kind of wordy. I mean, I'm reading through it, but I think this is a lot of stuff we've seen before. Yeah, I don't think we have any new players in this stream right now. So, I think I'm actually going to call it here. I might read this for my own prosperity here, but so far these are combos we've seen. I appreciate the article, Dylan, and maybe I'll learn a new thing or two from it. But so far these are combos I've been seeing in the competitive scene for a while. And my voice is telling me it's time to stop. So, thank you everyone for joining the stream. I hope you enjoyed the previews. I should be back next week with another Tabletop Tuesdays. Not sure whether it will be about IACP. It's going to be about IACP. We have at least another week of spoiler articles to cover. Whether or not I have any more special previews for you. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. I'll be sure to post many clips from this stream as soon as I can on what these new cards are that have been spoiled. Alright everyone, thanks again for joining, and make sure to stay frosty.